Happy Friday, everyone. This is a quick recap of last night's episode. As usual, we covered the juiciest news first, before taking a trip right down memory lane where we talked about 4 among the best retro games ever made. Do not forget that you can come hang around with us live every Thursday at 6 p.m. UK time on Twitch and here on YouTube. Let me swiftly remind all PlayStation users that the Play at Home initiative is actually live right now. So you can go and download Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, which is basically Uncharted 1, 2 and 3, as well as the indie game Journey for free. And you have up until May 5th to do so. Also, I might as well say that if you are a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you do get Uncharted 4 as well as Dirt Rally 2.0 once again for free, and you have up until May 4th to add these games to your library. Now, isn't this awesome? Big shout out to Sony. Is it just us, or the PlayStation 5 controller, aka the DualSense, does kinda look like a penguin? Well, without further ado, let's dive right in. Let's try it out. I'm gonna introduce Dave to my left.
Hey. Right. Well, good to see you, Lorenzo. How's it going, man?
Great. Absolutely great.
Fantastic. I'd like to introduce someone, but I can't see what's going on.
Well, I can give you a hint, actually. Yeah, stupid me. I can give you a hint. Underneath you, there's the bearded man, you know, the one that lives with you.
Oh, how's it going, Rick? How you doing down there?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good, brother.
Good. And then
How is? Yeah. So, and Claudio, the lovely, sexy Claudio. It could be that way or that way. I'm not sure.
No,
So
you're right.
It's
to your right. Well, yeah, to your right.
I see a new Batman, by the way, in your background. That wasn't there last week.
Yeah, so I'm limited on toys, but this is my my partner's brother-in-law made this for me. He made this, and then this is a little Funko Pop. So if Funko Pop want to send me free stuff, that's fine.
Okay. This is curious. So I've stumbled upon these 2 tweets, right? One shows the Xbox Series X when it was revealed on December 13th. And then the other one looks at the DualSense reveal, which was last week. Was it April 7th?
Yeah.
Now, it's impressive how basically the Xbox Series X tweet, which is the entire console, right? So you're revealing the entire console to the public. It's got, 4.5k, comments, 25.5k retweets, and 80.8k likes. If you look at the DualSense, in just a span of a week, they've doubled, not even doubled, quadrupled those numbers. They've got like 20k comments, 89.5k retweets, and it's crazy. Wow. 322.4k likes. What do you guys think? I can tell you that Rick and Dave are kind of like perplexed.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like I guess it's just PlayStation. They just have that such loyal fan base.
So apparently there was Amazon France last week listed some PS4 exclusives as coming to PC. And we're talking about Bloodborne, and we're talking about Days Gone, which are Sony's IPs, as well as Persona 5, which is not Sony, it's not owned by Sony, it's owned by Sega, but it's exclusive to Sony and PlayStation. Now, that was all fake. It was obviously then, reported as fake by IGN and Matt Kim. Although it did send the internet into a downward spiral of uprising, which I found quite funny. Anyway, It's not happening. It's all fake. Who's a Resident Evil fan here? Because I am.
Hello.
I do like it. I'm always terrified when I play them, but I'm a fan.
Well, there you go. So Resident Evil 3 Remake came out, was it 2 weeks ago, last week? I cannot even remember. And we've got already people reporting that Resident Evil 4 is actually up for a remake. Once again, the internet were like, it doesn't need a remake, which I kind of agree. Okay?
Okay.
But then I was analyzing a few figures, right? By the way, this was reported by Andy Robinson at videogamechronicles.com, who's, a reputable source, a reputable guy, but still take this with a grain of salt. But anyway, the figures, which are actually official, says Resident Evil 2 Remake, which came out on January 2019, sold 5.8 million units. Wow. 5.8 million. We're talking about shy of 1 million more than the original Resident Evil 2, right? And this is actually straight from Capcom. And then CNN.com reported that Resident Evil 3 in 5 days is sold 2 million copies. 5 days, 2 million copies, and people aren't even super happy about it.
Yeah, that's big. That's some big numbers there.
Big numbers. Last thing really, Nintendo news, right? So Nintendo, we've got an update. I'm just gonna go really quickly with this. Nothing major, but I found curious that in the update, they actually allowed you to kind of like swap the buttons and customize the buttons of the Joy-Cons exactly as you want them. So you could literally go bonkers with this. I think Claudio will be really happy to hear about it, right?
I'm actually extremely happy to hear this, yes.
Well, there you go. And then the last thing about Nintendo today is that there is a sale going on. So once again, spring sale. There are a lot of titles. There's some big ones like Zelda Breath of the Wild, for example.
It kind of rings a bell, yeah.
Never heard of it.
Right? Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
And finally, Disco Elysium. For those of you who know it, it's a PC.
Oh, this is the best game.
Here we go.
I've never played it.
Oh, it's so good. I was in two minds about whether or not to talk about Disco Elysium last week.
Well, do you know that Disco Elysium actually is set to release on the Switch now?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we are talking about a game who won some BAFTA awards 2 weeks ago, was it? I think on the 3rd of April.
Yeah.
As best narrative, best music, and best debut indie game.
Oh, it's so good.
That's a lot.
Claudio, which is just underneath me, is going to talk about retro gaming and his favorite game. Well, we're going to do this over a few weeks, but for this episode, his favorite retro game. So over to you, Claudio. By the way, you already have a fan. The same guy that was commenting is like, he likes you a lot for some reason. Okay. So say hi.
Hi, guy that likes me a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you are the eye candy.
Well, what can I say, guys? My favorite retro game is also my very first video game, and I couldn't pick anything else but Mario, of course. Incidentally, I'm Italian, but I will not embarrass myself with "It's a me, Claudio," even if I just did.
Even though you just did it.
I was 6 years old, and a friend of mine, my neighbor, actually got a SNES or Super Nintendo, as we call it in Europe, with Super Mario All-Star. Now, Super Mario All-Star back in the days, for those of you who are as old as me, had only the first Mario, the Mario The Next Levels, which was the actual Mario 2, but the one that came out only in Japan. Mario 2, the one that came out in Western world, so USA and Europe. And Mario 3, the one with the raccoon tail that you may remember, the first one where Mario can fly.
Oh, that's right.
I wanted a Super Nintendo so badly. I think I must have bothered my parents for a month. I was, it was a funny situation. I think you may have passed through that transition as well, in which your parents still want to buy you toys.
Yeah.
Well, you actually want for the first time something, on the video. It's like, toys. What do I do with them anymore? Like, they couldn't really understand. They couldn't understand why did I wanted something non-concrete, non-physical. But I'm digressing. And what do I know? They got me a bundle. I still didn't know this word back in the days. Super Nintendo with Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. And oh boys, what did I know? So it was the same cartridge that my neighbor had, plus a whole new game, which actually is my real favorite retro game. The one with Yoshi, just to be clear. If there was anyone living under a rock in the last 25 years or 30 years, Super Mario World is the game where Yoshi appears for the first time.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Because you mentioned your neighbor. Was there kind of some sort of rivalry between you and your neighbors as to who owned the best Super Mario version?
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because it was exactly that. So I invite my neighbor. By the way, he may be watching. Livio, I'm talking about you. You know this guy, by the way, Lorenzo. It's the same guy you know.
Is it? Okay.
Sorry, it's our previous life in Cagliari.
Yeah.
So I invite Livio over to my place, and I was I really this was a Machiavellian plan. You know, I was like, oh, would you care to try my Super Mario All Star? I was like, well, I have the same cartridge. And I was like, oh, I bet you don't, because I showed that I did this extra game, Super Mario World. And I remember him perfectly saying, oh, they must have given you a ripped off version. They must have given you like a fake one. That's not the real thing. There is this fake game. I don't have it. I have the real thing. I couldn't admit.
Bloody hell.
Jealousy is a powerful tool.
Oh yeah.
But what can I say, guys? To date, I still play with these games, with the collection. Switch was kind enough to give me the emulator for the Super Nintendo, and there is a big collection of many titles, including Super Mario All Star. So I literally restarted everything. My favorites clearly are the first one, because just nostalgic reasons, and even just for the soundtrack, it's amazing. We all know it.
Soundtrack is a thing, really.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing Mario nailed across all the games was the soundtrack.
100% soundtrack.
I don't know if it's just me, guys, but I find myself still, to date, just going for the ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta every time I do anything, which includes, I don't know, sticks, pans, pots, knocking on a door. I think I may have some, obsessive compulsive disorder, but I still think it's the catchiest. How many notes ever? Yeah.
I sing it while in sleep.
Probably I do. I think I wish. I mean, everybody knows Mario. I guess that everyone can have his own story about Mario, but for me, it was literally love at first sight. What is funny, it's that back in the days, the plot made perfect sense to me. You know, plumber goes down the tubes, down the pipes. Yeah. What do you know? You can find all this sort of shit, all the sort of the crazy things. Only as a grown-up man, I started realizing about the plot, about how completely wrong is the plot. Like Bowser, big evil turtle kidnapping a princess. An Italian plumber, of all the people that could go to the rescue, goes to the rescue.
Princess in a different castle. I mean, come on, Mario, do some research into the castle before you do it, right?
I might be completely wrong at this, and I'm gonna get grilled for this probably. Is like every Super Mario game, do they kind of have the same plot? Like Peach gone missing and you gotta rescue her? Or am I wrong?
It's dangerous territory there, Lorenzo.
Very dangerous, I know.
You're walking thin ice there, lad.
Actually,
it has a meticulous plot with some similarity.
hints of the old game.
Just loving callbacks.
It always is charming, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna say something. I've played all the games that we're gonna talk about today, except one game. Once you said that was your game, I was like, oh crap, I should really play that game, and I went off to Steam and bought it, so I am gonna play it. But here we go, all to you, Rick, right now.
Okay, so my retro game, like Claudio, also happens to be my first ever game, which is Monkey Island. I love this game. I still think to this day, Monkey Island is possibly my most favorite game. I was a bit similar to Claudio in that respect. So I was of that age when I wanted to play video games. All my friends had the SNES or like even a PlayStation 1, I think, or the original PlayStation. And I remember asking my mum and dad if I could have a PlayStation, and they wouldn't let me have one. I begged. And they just wouldn't give me a PlayStation. I think I asked for it for like 3 Christmases and nothing. But instead, what they did was, I think kind of that thing. They wanted to get toys, but my dad heard about this game that you could put on your PC called Monkey Island, and he got me this, and I put the disc in, and I just played it, and it is the most. It's like an addictive game I've ever played. It's like so for those of you who don't know what Monkey Island is, it's essentially an adventure. It's an adventure game, so it's not necessarily like an action-packed game, but it's like puzzle solving, and it's like very heavy story based. And you play this character called Guybrush Threepwood, who turns up on this Melee Island. This is the opening scene, which I think you've already seen. and he just turns up and he just wants to be a pirate, and that's his like mission. And then it's basically about like becoming a pirate. The first game is about him becoming a pirate and then discovering the secret of Monkey Island. This is like this famous island, and it's just incredible. Like it's just you pick up objects and you have these objects, and then you can combine objects together. I think there's like an image of like trying to like drug some dogs, which doesn't sound great now, which you shouldn't drug dogs, kids, but it was just it was so good, and it was just so nostalgic. And then there was like I think it was like 16-bit, I think, or it was really pixelated, the original image, but it felt so real. It was so charming. And then I can't remember what year it was, but they released the first 2 games as a remastered version. So it had better graphics, it had voice actors now, because there was no voice actors. So you had all the voices in your head, which was amazing. But it was just so brilliant, and it's just so charming. And just I couldn't stop playing it. I remember getting in from school, and just thinking about Monkey Island. And yeah, like you said, there was no Google. There was no. Yeah. I think you had to I think you could buy like magazines that gave you cheats back in the day. Do you remember those? Or like you could
shut up. You could actually. Oh my god! You just reminded me of something. You could buy magazines that would give you cheats. And some magazines would have like guide to Monkey Island, and then you have to buy like 12 or 20 copies to actually get the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah,
because they will never give you the whole guide in one issue.
Never.
Just enough to whet your appetite.
Yeah.
But it was the game was like a LucasArts game, and I think back in that period, they were really on it with their games. They were really smart because they were designed for kids. But I remember sitting in front of the computer, being stuck on a moment, and I asked my dad for help. I was like, my dad's really, really clever, and I remember thinking, oh, my dad will know the answer. And then I get home from school one day, and my dad's playing Monkey Island instead of me. He got addicted to these games. So it just transcends age. They were just so good. They had it's that beautiful thing what they do. Where it's designed for kids, but it has like adult humor in there, and it was so good. If you've never played this game, get on Steam like I'm gonna do and buy it, because it's just so charming. They're so lovely, and they're hard. They're not easy games. There's a lot of puzzle solving.
I must say I played it as well. I never finished it. I could never finish it.
I finished them all except the 5th one, because I think I had a cracked copy of it, and
it would stop working basically.
I think
they just missed one of the bits from the puzzle, so naturally it wasn't that I couldn't figure it out.
I remember just having loads of bugs in it, and I just remember thinking, I can't do this. But they're on Steam, so I'm going to discover Monkey Island 5. But we're talking about Monkey Island 1 but all the Monkey Island games except 4 are amazing. They've got really lovely artwork. It's just really I'm a big fan of Monkey Island 3 because of the artwork. And then Monkey Island 4, they kind of tried to get with the times, so they had 3D animations.
Was it the 3D? Yeah.
Yeah, they had that 3D animation available to them. So they tried to do it, but it's really blocky, and it's he's very much like that, and it's not. And he's like, oh, pick up a skull, and it's like,
yeah.
And it's it's just not. It lost its charm, but the 5th one was okay because it had better graphics.
I must agree with you. You just reminded me of that. Yeah, the 4th one came out on a PlayStation. I don't remember if 1 or 2. I played it, and it had lost all of its charm. Actually, the 3D graphics really didn't work.
Yeah, because it's a point and click thing. We got 2 comments from Twitch about Monkey Island. First one is you managed to finish only after you get a degree in aerospatial design engineering.
Yeah,
sure.
That sounds about right.
That's not far off.
That is tough. The second comment says Monkey Island 4 is for Lucas, what Chinese democracy is for Axl Rose. Well done. Round of applause here.
Can we agree that from now on From now on, in every episode, I want to have a Chinese democracy reference.
Okay, agreed.
I really hope that person watched the last episode and made that reference.
Exactly.
That was brilliant. That's
fantastic reference.
Well done, whoever that was.
Although I'm gonna discount 1 point here because they misspelled Axel. Dave, what have you got for us?
Right, well, my game, I feel like I'm maybe just completely copying Claudio here. Mine is another Mario game.
It's a great Mario game, though.
Yes, Super Mario 64.
Oh.
And I remember, because we started with the SNES and then we got the N64, and, like everyone else on the planet, our opening 3 games were Mario Kart, GoldenEye, and Super Mario 64. And I remember even years later, after getting the PlayStation, even PS2 era, I would keep going back and playing this game because it was just so good. Just before we got started, I was refamiliarizing myself with the game and just looking at clips on YouTube, and you're just watching it with the biggest smile on your face because it's so fun. Like every bit of it's brilliant. Running around the mansion, jumping into these weird paintings, and
it was so good.
Does anyone remember the level where you're climbing down a really snowy mountain in the middle of winter?
Yeah,
with penguins, was it?
Yeah, there was a penguin, and if you were a real sociopath, you picked up the baby penguin and threw it off the mountain.
Remember that and done it.
It was, and the mum did not look happy.
Oh no!
It was just such a game. Run around collecting stars. If you managed to get, I think it was like 100 of them, you unlocked the secret area when you went on the roof and found Yoshi. Spoiler alert.
Sorry, we're ruining Mario again.
And they're going to sue us at this, right? It's going to be awful.
Mario
64, so good.
100%. I live in the UK, like the 3 of us except for Claudio. But I do have, back home in Italy, I do have my Super Nintendo, PS1, PS2, and Nintendo 64. So whenever I'm on holiday, so back home basically, I kind of fire it up again and play a little bit. It just takes me straight back to those happy memories.
Dave's so right. Those are the 3 games that everyone on the planet who owned an N64 had.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can't Mario. See, and they're still relevant today. They're so relevant today. Like if someone said to me, "Oh, name your price for these games," I'd be like, "Nah, I'm keeping them. I'm keeping them."
My relationship with Mario 64 is similar. It's surprising, but it's similar to the relationship I had with Halo for the Xbox, in the sense of I had another console. I had a PlayStation back in the days. I had betrayed Nintendo for a PlayStation, and for a moment, I was a very strong Sony fanboy. And I hated to admit, and I never wanted to admit, that the other console had a better platform game than the console I had, which was Crash Bandicoot, which was an amazing game nevertheless, but Mario 64 was better. I didn't want to admit it. I eventually played it, and it was Mario. It was exactly Mario, but 3D, so I loved it. And I'm saying this because I had the same one generation after with Halo. Now, Halo was the best, I think, first-person shooter, but it was for the Xbox. And not for the PlayStation 2. And I never wanted to admit that. I was like, no, but PlayStation 2 also has great FPS. Except it didn't. Halo was the best of that generation.
I completely agree with you there, Claudio. Everything you just said, I completely agree. I was the exact same. Halo was amazing for the first person, but I didn't want to admit that.
I remember just go back to just the sheer charm of the N64 and those 3 games. I remember back when Rick and I were in uni together, one of our housemates actually brought his N64 from home.
Yeah.
And I think for 2-3 weeks we just didn't go to class.
I mean, I'd say 2 or 3. I'd say 2 or 3 years.
Not weeks. It wasn't weeks, Dave. It felt like weeks.
Yeah.
No one moving, bloodshot eyes.
Still no regrets.
I can relate though, because I'm thinking with what Claudio said, Okay, lame me as a kid. I was a Nintendo fanboy. Actually, it wasn't my first console. My first console was a Sega Game Gear, for those of you who remember that. But I was a Nintendo fanboy. I had a Super Nintendo, I had a Nintendo 64. When I got myself when my mum got me a Nintendo 64, PlayStation was coming out, was already out, and everyone else had PlayStation. I was one of the few people owning a Nintendo 64, and I was like so stubborn, just like Clad. It was like, nope, PlayStation sucks, blah 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 blah. You know, the graphics is better on the Nintendo 64, which it's actually not wrong, because by looking at Super Mario 64 still to this day, I can notice that there was some anti-aliasing filter, which would kind of like blur the whole pixel thing. Whereas on the first PlayStation looked very, very grainy and like with all the pixels in motion on display. But back to the point. Until I kind of like I had to to kind of like concede that if you wanted to play, you'll excuse me for this, grown-up games. So we're talking about Tomb Raiders, Resident Evil, etc., etc., etc. You had to get them either on PC or on PlayStation. So I had to defect to the other team, and I fell in love with Sony as well.
It feels like you're cheating on a girlfriend or a boyfriend, doesn't it? Like honestly, like when you switch consoles, you do feel like you've really done a bad thing.
Just walked out on the wife and kids.
yeah. I've had a family. Yeah, I've set up a family for 6 years, but it's not for me anymore.
And in the same way, it's nice to look back at it, 10 years after, and thinking, oh yeah, but we had such a lovely time together. Yeah, why did we break up in the first place?
100%, yeah.
But Lorenzo, sorry if you must have not been the only one with a Nintendo 64, first of all, because I do remember having discussions back in my middle school, I think, that was the time. And there was one argument that I could never win, and that was over the amount of bit, because Nintendo 64 had the
64-bit, yeah.
Whereas the PlayStation had 32. Now, I didn't understand any of this back in the day. It didn't change much, I must say, 20 years after, but it was unattackable. It was really like numbers speak. 64 versus 32. And
math
I
is
never
math.
knew what to say against that. Yeah, math is math.
And today we have that with teraflops. So we'll talk about it in the next episode. We've got a few comments, but I was the same, by the way. I was like, 64 bits, you cannot argue with that. Not knowing what the hell I was talking about.
You can't argue with it.
Yeah. So we've got a few comments here on Twitch, by the way. So there's a guy, fan of Alex Kidd. Too much marketing leveraging on stereotypes made Mario famous, but Alex Kidd is better. Too easy making a game with an Italian plumber, appealing for too many housewives. I'm sure that was.
When I played far too much Mario, and I remember my mum asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I told her I wanted to be a plumber. And she goes, okay, why do you want to be a plumber? And I just reeled off the story of Mario.
Hang on, did you not say, I want to be an Italian plumber?
Yeah. I want to be a specific Italian plumber. Saving princesses.
Should have said that.
Right.
Should have said that.
So,
But
guys.
the look on her face when I said that I wanted to jump through paintings in a mansion and save a princess because I was a plumber and that's what plumbers did.
And fight a turtle with with spikes on the shaft. My game is once again Super Nintendo era, and this is the game. Don't get me wrong, I've played the Super Mario All-Stars, I've played the Mario 64s, but this game is probably the one that I kind of like cherish the most from my childhood. We're talking about the Donkey Kong saga. Specifically, we're talking about Donkey Kong Country 3. And
very good boy.
it was
A bizarre choice of yours.
maybe a bizarre choice, but I can tell you that. So, the story kind of goes like yours, Claudio, by the way. I really, really, really wanted a Super Nintendo because my cousin had a Super Nintendo. Say hi to my cousin. And
Hello.
Hello, cousin.
And then play at ease. We would play Mortal Kombat. I think it was Mortal Kombat 2, as well as Donkey Kong Country 2, and I loved both those games. Specifically, you know what appealed to me in Donkey Kong Country 2? It was a monkey playing the electric guitar whenever you finish the level.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
It was the girlfriend of Didi.
Exactly. And it was like, and that was great. It was like, oh my god. I was already a rocker by then, so it was like, oh my god, electric guitar, monkeys, platforms, blah blah blah. And then obviously you had Mortal Kombat, but that's another story. So I really wanted a Super Nintendo, and then my mom got me and my sister one on Christmas Day. So nice, right? I remember.
Well done, Mum.
Well done, Mum. Applause for Mum. I remember spending my Christmas morning playing with the Super Nintendo, and she got us Donkey Kong Country 3 and Mortal Kombat 3. For some reason I asked for 2 and 2, but she got me 3 and 3. Well, there you go. But that's why. So that's why I love Donkey Kong Country 3 so much, because I finished both eventually, but the 2 and the 3. But Donkey Kong Country 3 is kind of like the first one I played with my own Super Nintendo, with my sister. We both love it. Like, my sister sometimes, once again, when she lives in New York, she doesn't live in London like me, but whenever she's home, we'll fire up the Super Nintendo, we play Donkey Kong together.
That's really sweet.
It's just a charming platformer with monkeys jumping and collecting bananas and...
Just go to the Zooland, though.
Right.
You can still get that.
I can still get that experience. I mean, it might have to do with the fact that I would really like to own a capuchin monkey, but that's another story. And I would even... No, I would call it Archibald. or Luigi, either one of the two.
Right, guys, make a note for Secret Santa. Capuchin.
Archibald.
And I would like to train it as a monkey battler, by the way.
Archibald or Luigi.
Also, there's a new Donkey Kong, which I think Claudio is about to purchase.
Ooh.
Tropical Freeze, finally. I didn't have a Wii U, and I swear that would have been the one game that would have made me buy a Wii U. And now that it's on Switch, I gotta have it.
It's a great platform. By the way, you'll find it on a Nintendo eShop for those of you who have a Switch.
It's currently on a discount.
Yeah, it's on sale. Sorry, that's what I meant. eSale shop. One thing, curious thing. So Donkey Kong was developed by Rare, or Rareware, which are actually, they still exist. They are an English video game company. Yeah. They are based in Twycross. Or Tweecross. I don't know how you guys say it.
That's the first time I've ever heard that
name. There you go. We're not great in geography. I don't know if you guys know, but Rare, it's actually owned by Microsoft at this day and age. And curious thing, when Microsoft bought Rare, people, were thinking, Microsoft fans were like, we're gonna get Donkey Kong. No, you wouldn't, because Donkey Kong is a Nintendo intellectual property, so it's not owned by Rare. Although, for those of you who do know these games, I think Microsoft with Rare acquired Conker, Battletoads, as well as
Battletoads. That's another great game.
And there's one coming out. By the way, there's one in if it's not out already, it's coming out in the near future. And they've also acquired Banjo-Kazooie, which is another Rare.
Banjo-Kazooie.
That is it. That was the 3D one on Nintendo 64, made by Rare.
And that was
I think that's the one I played, Banjo-Kazooie.
And that was Rare, and that was Rare IP. So Microsoft owns that now. There is a game called Everwild that Rare basically announced on, I think it was November 2019, so not too far off, at the XO19 on YouTube, via YouTube, and was in the Xbox channel. It looks very compelling. It kind of looks like a Breath of the Wild. People are going to grill me for this just because it kind of looks cartoony, but it does have a Breath of the Wild vibe. If anything, it looks a little bit more from the little footage that I'm seeing, it looks a little bit more dense in terms of, trees and stuff and animals. It looks great, so definitely check this one out. It's not out yet, doesn't have a release date, and unfortunately, because you guys know what, it might also be delayed like many other games, unfortunately, namely The Last of Us 2. I'm already still crying about that.
Damn you, Corona.
Yeah, as well as Cyberpunk 2077.
I mean, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. That one hits. I remember watching the entire 50-minute gameplay demo in one sitting and be like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
And that one hits hard.
Well, people lost their collective minds when Keanu Reeves appeared on the trailer.
I was watching that live. I was like, "What the hell? How can you?"
I think you instantly text me, Lorenzo. I think you text me straight away, and you're just like, "Watch Cyberpunk, watch it." So yeah.
Funny thing, he did the same with me.
I did the same with you. I did the same with a lot of people.
Yeah, he just sent a mass text to everyone on his phone. His mum and dad are picking up the phone
like, who's this dude? And that was the end of our Throwback Thursday retro game nostalgia. As usual, thank you so much for watching. And why don't you leave us a comment down below to tell us what your favorite retro games are. Do not forget to subscribe, as well as clicking on the little bell icon to be notified whenever we post new content. We are super excited about next week's episode. We will be kickstarting our next gen trip with the full lowdown on the ever so intriguing Xbox Series X. So do tune in next Thursday, the 23rd of April, either here on YouTube or on our Twitch channel. Now until then, I hope you have a great one.